The turkey was still in the oven when my mother-in-law walked in, took one look around my kitchen, and let out a sigh so heavy it could have knocked over the tamales cooling on the counter. "This place," she said, voice dripping with something between pity and disgust, "is practically a cottage." 8 pairs of eyes snapped to me. My hands didn't shake. I trained myself not to let them, but my throat went dry like I'd swallowed sand. I kept stirring the gravy. Brown, roux, chicken stock, a splash of lime. It was my abuela's recipe. But right then, all I could hear was the echo of Constance Hartley's voice, sweet like poison, cutting through Thanksgiving like a blade. She didn't know. She had no idea. But that night, after everyone left and I cried into my husband's shirt while washing dishes, I lay awake wondering, how much longer do I stay quiet? If you've ever been made to feel small in your own home, like your worth is measured by square footage, your accent, or the brand on your shoes, you're not alone. I'm Gabby, and this is the story of how I built an empire in silence, while the woman who called my house embarrassing paid rent to me for 3 years without even knowing it. Before we go further, thank you for being here. If this story speaks to you, hit subscribe. Not for me. For every woman who's been underestimated, talked over, or told she's not enough. Your support means I can keep sharing truths that matter. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. Not to Thanksgiving. Not to the humiliation. But to where it all really started. With a $30,000 gift from 2 immigrant parents who scrubbed floors and swung hammers so their daughter could dream bigger than they ever did. I grew up in East Austin. Not the East Austin with craft coffee and million-dollar flips. Back then, it was still blocks of modest homes, chain-link fences, and neighbors who watched your kids when you worked double shifts. My parents, Rosa and Manuel Santos, did both. Mom cleaned houses for women like Constance Hartley. Dad poured concrete under a Texas sun so hot it blistered skin in 20 minutes. We didn't have much, but we had pride. And discipline. And a dinner table where I can't wasn't an option. In 2012, I became the first in my family to graduate college at Austin, business with a focus in real estate. Not because I loved spreadsheets, though I do now, but because I saw a path out of paycheck panic, a way to build something that couldn't be taken away. At 24, I scraped together every dollar I had, $15,000 from savings, $30,000 from my parents' life savings, and a $120,000 FHA loan, and bought a tired little 3-bed, 1,420 square foot house in a subdivision called Cedar Creek. It was ugly. Peeling paint, leaky roof, carpet that smelled like old cigarettes and regret. But it was mine. I lived in it while I renovated nights and weekends. Stripped walls, laid tile, painted everything white so the light could do the work. Sold it a year later for $210,000. After closing costs, I walked away with $38,000 in profit. That was 2015. By 2018, I'd flipped 6 more. By 2020, the year I married Chris, I owned for rentals. Then came 2021, a small developer went under, foreclosed on an 8-house package in Cedar Creek. I bought the whole thing for $1.6 million. Refinanced, renovated, rented, and I kept going. Today, in 2024, I own 27 properties in that same subdivision. Total portfolio value, $12.8 million. Equity after mortgages, $8.1 million. Passive income, rent minus expenses, property management, taxes, about $16,500 a month. And I still live in that first little house, the one Constance called a cottage. Why? Because it reminds me where I came from. Because I don't need a McMansion to prove I've made it. Because wealth that screams isn't wealth at all. My dad taught me that. Real power whispers. Chris knows everything. He met me in 2018, before the big portfolio, before the passive income. He's a mechanical engineer at Tesla, salad salary. Great guy, but he makes 1/10 of what I bring in passively. And he's never once treated me like I owe him an explanation. He loves this house. Our mismatched furniture from Target. My collection of Mexican ceramics on the shelves. The way the backyard smells like jasmine in spring. He also loves that I don't care what people like his mother think. Which, didn't stop her from showing up on Thanksgiving with judgment in her purse and cruelty on her lips. Thanksgiving morning started peacefully. 8 a.m. coffee in my favorite mug, world's okayest daughter, and the scent of cinnamon and masa filling the air. I'd spent 2 days prepping, roasted turkey, tamales wrapped in corn husks, the way my abuela taught me, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, and a tres leches cake that took 3 hours to soak. Chris was at the sink, peeling sweet potatoes, humming off key to a Selena playlist. He kissed my temple. Mom texted, "She's bringing Bradley and Susan." I froze. "Your aunt and uncle? From Houston?" "Yeah." She said it's too sad to spend the holiday alone. He rolled his eyes, but gently. Chris loves his mom. He just doesn't understand her anymore. I took a breath. It's fine. We'll be gracious. But my stomach twisted. Constance Hartley had never liked me. Not since Chris introduced me as his girlfriend in 2018. "Oh," she'd said, looking me up and down at that Christmas party. "You're very pretty. And your English is excellent. I'm a native speaker, born in Austin." But her tone implied I'd clawed my way out of some foreign gutter to marry her son. 4 years of marriage later, and her disapproval hadn't softened. It had just gotten quieter except when it wasn't. She'd moved into Cedar Creek in 2022, after her husband died. Rented a nice 3-bed, 2.100 square foot house on Oak Street for $2,650 a month. What she never knew. I owned that house. She's been my tenant for 3 years. Lease handled through Austin Property Group. Owner name never disclosed. Standard practice. She assumed her landlord was some faceless LLC, and I let her. Because part of me wanted to see how long it would take for her to realize the woman she looked down on was the one cashing her checks. By 4 p.m., the house was full. My parents arrived first, Rosa with a flan wrapped in foil, Manuel carrying a bottle of tequila and a quiet smile. "Smells like heaven in here, Mia," Mom said, hugging me tight. Then Natalie, Chris's younger sister, pulled up in her Prius arms, full of wine and a genuine grin. "You survived another year with Mom," she whispered in my ear. "Hero." Finally, at 4:28 p.m., Constance arrived, alone. Dressed like she was attending a country club lunch, an ivory sweater set, pearls, heels that clicked on my hardwood like a metronome of judgment. She air-kissed Chris, "Darling," then turned to me with a nod. Not a hug, not even eye contact. Gabriella as she walked in. Her gaze swept the living room, my bookshelves filled with paperback thrillers and Spanish poetry, the worn but clean rug, the framed photos of Chris and me hiking in Big Bend. "Well," she said, voice lilting upward like it was a complaint, "cozy." Dinner was tense, but polite. We sat around my oak table, 8 of us. Me, Chris, Constance, Natalie, my parents, and Chris's aunt and uncle, Bradley and Susan. The turkey was golden, the tamales perfect. Constance asked Rosa about her retirement. "Oh, you don't work anymore. How nice." She complimented Natalie's blouse. So accessible. She didn't ask me a single question. Then came dessert. I served the tres leches. Light, soaked just right, topped with whipped cream and fresh strawberries. Constance took a bite, nodded, set her fork down, and then loud enough for everyone to hear she said, "Gabriella, I've been meaning to ask, this house is so quaint. I mean, it's practically a cottage, isn't it? How many square feet, en virgule deux?" I kept my voice steady. 1,423 bedrooms. "It's perfect for us." She smiled, a thin, practiced thing. "Perfect for now, perhaps. But Christopher, darling, when are you two planning to upgrade to a proper home? Something that reflects your achievements, your position at Tesla." She turned to him like I wasn't even there. "This is, well, it's barely more than a starter home." Chris stiffened. "Mom, we love this house. It's ours. That's what matters." "Oh honey," she sighed, waving her hand like he was being naive. "You're settling. You deserve better. A house in Westlake, perhaps. Or Barton Creek. Somewhere with prestige." Then she leaned toward Bradley and Susan. "Don't you think? It's almost embarrassing for the family that my son, a Tesla engineer, lives in a, well, She gestured around my home like it was a shed. This, silence. Susan shifted. Constance, their home is lovely, lovely in a humble sort of way. Yes, Constance cut in. But Christopher wasn't raised humble. He deserves more. My cheeks burned. My chest tightened like a vice. I wanted to scream. To stand up and say, "You're renting from me. You pay me $2,650 a month. I own 27 houses. I could buy your dream home in Westlake and not blink." But I didn't. Because that would have meant she won. It would have meant her opinion mattered enough for me to defend myself. So I stayed quiet. Chris didn't. "Mom, that's enough. You're being rude. I'm being honest," she snapped. "There's a difference. It is hers. That is pride." Constance gave her a look condescending, almost pitying. "I'm sure she did. I mean no offense. I just want the best for my son." And the unspoken words hung in the air like smoke. "You are not the best." Dinner ended 20 minutes later. Awkward hugs, quick goodbyes. Constance kissed Chris on the cheek. "Think about what I said, darling." She didn't look at me. After everyone left, I stood at the sink, scrubbing gravy bowls, tears falling silently into the soapy water. Chris found me, wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Gabby, I'm so sorry. She was awful, I know," I whispered. "But this time, in front of everyone, I defended you." "You did. But she doesn't listen. She thinks I'm beneath you. Beneath this family. You're not." His voice cracked. "You're incredible. You've built an empire." "She has no idea, and I'm not going to tell her," I said, turning to face him. "If I do, it looks like I'm bragging, like I need her approval." "You don't." "No, I don't." I wiped my face. "Stealth wealth, remember, let them assume, let them judge. We know the truth." He kissed my forehead. "You're better than me." I would have told her off. I smiled faintly. Maybe. But that's not how I win. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Constance's words played on loop. Embarrassing. Starter home, settling, and for the first time in 10 years of building, I wondered, how long do I stay quiet? Because silence had protected me. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to let the truth speak for itself. The silence after Thanksgiving didn't last long. By Sunday, Constance had already texted Chris, "Found a beautiful home in Westlake, 4 bedrooms, $850,000. You two should seriously consider something like this. I could help with the down payment." Chris showed me the text. He was mad. I just laughed quietly, bitterly. Because she didn't say it to me. She never does. She didn't say, "Gabriella, have you thought about upgrading?" She didn't ask, "What are your financial goals?" She didn't care. She assumed I couldn't afford it, that I was holding Chris back, that his potential was being wasted in my 1,420 square foot cottage. What she didn't know. That same week, I'd just finalized the purchase of my 27th property in Cedar Creek, a foreclosure I got for $395,000, cash. It'll rent for $2,750 a month, net profit, after expenses and property management, about $1,900 a month, forever. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell anyone, because that's not how I operate. If you're new here, I'm Gabby and this isn't a story about getting rich. It's about being seen. For 10 years, I built an empire in silence while people like my mother-in-law assumed I was just a housewife because I wear jeans from Target and drive a 2019 Honda CR-V. If you've ever been judged for your lifestyle while quietly thriving, hit subscribe. Your support helps me keep sharing stories where humility wins and assumptions lose. Now, let me tell you how I got here. It started in 2014. I was 24, fresh out of UT, Austin with a business degree and a burning fear of ending up like my parents, working themselves to the bone just to keep the lights on. Not that I wasn't proud of them. Rosa and Manuel Santos scrubbed floors and poured concrete for 35 years, so I wouldn't have to. But I wanted more. Not for luxury, for security. For choice. For freedom. My parents sat me down one Sunday after church. Mom had a Ziploc bag in her hands. Inside, $30,000 in cash, Mostly 20s and 10s, some 5s. This is your Herencia, Dad said, voice rough. Not just money, opportunity. Don't spend it, build with it. I cried. They'd saved every dime since I was born. I used it to buy my first house, a sad little fixer-upper in Cedar Creek. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, peeling paint, carpet that smelled like wet dog and regret. Listed at $165,000. I lived in it while I renovated nights and weekends. Stripped floors, painted walls, replaced the roof with half the savings left over. A year later, I sold it for $210,000. Profit, $38,000. That was my seed. From 2015 to 2017, I flipped 6 more houses, small, strategic, always in Cedar Creek. I learned to spot undervalued properties, negotiate with cash offers, and rehab fast. By 2018, I had $180,000 in the bank. That's when I met Chris. He didn't care about my bank account. He cared that I made the best guacamole he'd ever had and laughed at his terrible puns. We dated 2 years, married in 2020. He knew I was into real estate, but I never told him the full scope, not at first. In 2021, everything changed. A small developer in Cedar Creek went bankrupt. 8 houses fully built, never sold, hit foreclosure. Market panic. Nobody wanted to touch it. I did. I leveraged my cash reserves, got a private loan at 5.2%, and bought the whole package for $1.6 million. 12 months later, all 8 were rented. Cash flow, $14,200 a month. That's when I stopped flipping and started building legacy. 2022. I bought for more, 2 at auction. 2 off-market, 2023. 3 more during the rate spike, landlords bailing out. I bought low. 2024. 2 more foreclosures, plus a duplex I converted into 2 units. Now, 27 properties. $12.8 million in total value. $8.1 million in equity. Passive income averaging $16,500 a month after property management fees, maintenance, taxes, and mortgage payments. And I still live in that first little house. Because it's not just a house, it's proof. Proof that a Latina daughter of immigrants can build generational wealth without shouting it from the rooftops. Proof that you don't need a Tesla or a designer handbag to be powerful. Proof that sometimes, the quietest people own the whole damn subdivision. Chris knows everything. He's proud. He doesn't feel less than. He loves that I'm strategic.com, and never flashy, but Constance. She assumes I'm just a housewife. That Chris supports me. That my life is small, because my house has been, and she's made sure I feel that every chance she gets. December 10th, 2024. Chris's phone buzzes during dinner. He sighs. It's Mom again. He reads it out loud. Pride is expensive, Christopher. Don't let it cost you your future. Referring to Westlake. Referring to me. I put my fork down. She really thinks I'm holding you back, doesn't she? She's stuck in her own head, he says, squeezing my hand. She'll never get it. But she didn't stop. December 22nd, Christmas shopping at Barton Creek Mall. Natalie, Constance, and Chris was working. We walked into Neiman Marcus. Constance drifted toward cashmere scarves. I looked at a sale rack near the door, $39 sweaters. She noticed Gabriella. She said, voice sweet like sour cream. Do you shop here, or is it out of budget? I didn't flinch. I prefer smaller boutiques. True, I buy most of my clothes online. Mango, ASOS, Old Navy. I don't need labels. My wealth isn't on my back. It's in my portfolio. She turned to Natalie, stage whispering. I just wish Christopher had married someone more established. Natalie, God bless her, snapped back. Mom, Gabby is established. She's one of the most disciplined people I know. Constance waved her off. At what? She doesn't even have a real job. I walked away, didn't argue, didn't correct her. Let her believe the lie. Christmas Day was worse. Dinner at her rental house, she insisted on hosting. Her place, 2,100 square feet, vaulted ceilings, granite countertops, $2,650 a month. She showed off like it was hers. This space is so much more appropriate, she said, glancing at me. Much better than living in a starter home. I ate my tamales, smiled politely. Inside, I was screaming. I own this house. You pay me $31,800 a year to live here. But I said nothing, because what good would it do? If I told her, she'd either accuse me of gloating or assume I was lying. Better to let her marinate in her own ignorance. January 2025. My parents came over for Sunday lunch. I finally broke over carne asada and horchata. I told them everything Thanksgiving. The texts, the Neiman Marcus comment, the Christmas digs. Rosa's eyes went dark. Mia, why do you let her talk to you like this? Because if I respond, I'm too sensitive. If I tell her the truth, I'm bragging. If I stay quiet, I'm weak. There's no winning. Manuel stirred his coffee. Quiet for a long time. Then he said, Gabby, you remember what I taught you. Wealth that screams is not wealth. Wealth that whispers is power. I nodded. I know, Papa, but it hurts. I whispered. She makes me feel small. Like I'm not enough for her son. Rosa slammed her hand on the table soft, but firm. You are not small. You own 27 houses. She rents one. Who is small? I laughed through tears. She doesn't even know she rents from me. Manuel leaned forward. Maybe it's time she learned. I shook my head. Not yet, not like this. I don't want her to think I did it to humiliate her. But part of me wondered, how long can I keep this secret when she keeps stabbing me with her words? Mid-January. Coffee with Jennifer Wu, my property manager at Austin Property Group. We meet monthly reviews, maintenance, tenant issues. She sipped her oat milk latte. Quick note 2468 Oak Street. Tenant's been calling a lot. Constance, I said. She doesn't know it's you, Jennifer said, frowning. She's complained about water pressure, landscaping, noise from young families. Classic tenant stuff. Ignore it, I said. Unless it's a legit maintenance issue. Then Jennifer paused. Also, we're issuing rent increase notices next month. 8% across the board. Market adjustment. Cedar Creek rents jumped 9% last quarter. I stiffened. How much for Oak Street? $2,650 to $2,862. I thought about it. Really thought. This wasn't just business. It was personal. She'd mocked my home. She'd implied I was poor. She'd told her son I was embarrassing to the family. And now she was my tenant complaining about the very asset that funded my freedom. I could have made an exception. I could have said, leave her rent alone. But that would have meant her opinion mattered. That her cruelty deserved reward. It didn't. Issue the notice, I said. No exceptions. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. You sure? She'd call me. She'd be furious. She can be furious, I said. Handle it professionally. Don't mention me unless she explicitly asks who owns the property. And if she does ask, I looked out the window at the for rent sign on one of my own houses across the street. Then tell her. February 1st, 2025. Rent increase notices went out in the mail. Constance's letter arrived 3 days later. I didn't see her open it, but I knew the moment she did. Because that afternoon, my phone rang. Caller ID, Constance Hartley. My stomach dropped. The silence was over. February 4th, 2025. 10 o'clock in the morning. I was at my kitchen table, laptop open, coffee steaming, reviewing maintenance requests for 3 of my Cedar Creek rentals when my phone buzzed. Jennifer Wu, Austin Property Group, I answered. Gabby, she said, voice tight. Constance just called. She got her rent notice. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on the stairs. Jennifer didn't need to say more. If you've ever been forced to reveal your truth not because you wanted to, but because someone's cruelty left you no choice, you know that feeling. It's not victory, it's survival. I'm Gabby and this is the moment everything changed. If this story has spoken to you, if you've ever stayed quiet while someone assumed the worst, hit subscribe. Your support means these truths keep getting told. Now, let me take you back to that Tuesday morning. Constance Hartley opened her mailbox at 9:47 a.m. Inside, a crisp white envelope from Austin Property Group. She didn't recognize the return address. She never had. She tore it open over her granite kitchen counter, same kitchen where she'd once hosted Christmas dinner, and called my house embarrassing. The letter was standard, clean, professional. Dear Ms. Hartley, per Section 7.2 of your lease agreement for 2468 Oak Street, your monthly rent will increase by 8% effective April 1, 2025. New monthly rent, $2,862 previous, $2,650. 0. This adjustment reflects current market rates for comparable properties in the Cedar Creek subdivision. Constance read it twice. Then, a third time. Her hands didn't tremble. Her face didn't flush. She went ice cold. Because $212 more a month meant $2,544 more a year. And to her, that wasn't just money. It was disrespect. 10:30 a.m. she called Austin Property Group. Not a request. A demand. I need to speak to someone in charge. Now? The receptionist, trained to diffuse tension, transferred her to Jennifer Woom, my property manager of 7 years, the only person besides Chris who knew the full scope of my portfolio. And that Constance was my tenant. Jennifer picked up on the first ring. Ms. Wu, this is Constance Hartley, 2468 Oak Street. I know who you are, Ms. Hartley, Jennifer said, calm as ever. This rent increase is unacceptable. Actually, Jennifer replied, it's standard. Cedar Creek rents have risen 7 to 9% across the board this year. Your new rate is at the low end of that range. I don't care about the market. I've been a perfect tenant. Never late. Never damaged anything. This is gouging. Ms. Hartley, the lease you signed allows for annual adjustments based on market conditions. This is within your contract. Constance's voice sharpened. Then I demand to speak to the owner. Jennifer paused. Just half a second. But I could hear it in her voice later, when she told me. That was the moment she remembered my words. Tell her if she asks. Owner information is typically confidential. Jennifer said carefully. I don't care. Constance's voice rose, sharp as broken glass. I have rights as a tenant. I have the legal right to know who owns the property I live in. Give me the name now, or I'll file a complaint with the BBB and contact a lawyer. Silence. Then Jennifer took a breath. Ms. Hartley, she said, clear and steady. The owner of 2468 Oak Street is Gabriela Santos Hartley. 10 seconds of silence. Then, what did you say? The property owner is Gabriela Santos Hartley, your daughter-in-law. Another silence, longer this time. Constance's world had just cracked open, because the woman she'd mocked for living in a quaint cottage, the woman she'd called embarrassing for the family, the woman she assumed was just a housewife with no real job, was her landlord. And not just a landlord. The landlord. She doesn't own property. Constance finally whispered, disbelief turning to panic. She lives in a tiny house. She doesn't even work. How could she, Ms. Hartley? Jennifer interrupted, professional but firm. Gabriela Santos Hartley is the legal owner of your rental. She's owned it since 2022. If you have questions about the rent increase, you're welcome to discuss them with her directly. This is a conflict of interest. Constance hissed. It's legal, documented, and disclosed upon request. The increase stands. If you'd like to explore payment options, I'm happy to help. Otherwise, your new rent is due, April 1st. Click. Constance hung up, seething, humiliated, alone. 11:02 a.m., my phone rang. Caller ID, Constance Hartley. I didn't want to answer, but I knew I had to. I took a slow breath, stood up, straightened my shoulders, and pressed accept. Hello, Constance. Her voice was tight, controlled, but underneath, rage, shame. Gabriela, I just spoke to Austin Property Group. They tell me you're my landlord. Is this true? Yes, I said. No hesitation, no apology. I own 2468 Oak Street. I've owned it since 2022. You didn't think to mention this. When I moved in, When we had Thanksgiving at your house. No, I said calmly. You rented through a property management company. Standard practice. Owner identity isn't disclosed unless the tenant asks. You never asked. I had no reason to. She snapped. I assumed it was some faceless corporation. Not my daughter-in-law. Someone normal, I said softly. Interesting choice of words. She ignored that. And this rent increased 8%. That's outrageous. It's 8% across my entire portfolio, I said. Market adjustment. Every tenant received the same notice. Your entire portfolio, a beat. Her voice shifted, curious now, edged with dread. How many properties do you own? 27. Silence. 15 full seconds. I could hear her breathing. Then, barely a whisper. You own 27 houses. Yes, I said, including my little cottage, the one you called embarrassing at Thanksgiving, and the house you're currently living in, and 25 others in this subdivision. Another pause. I could almost see her sitting there, in my house, surrounded by my equity, realizing that every judgment she'd made was built on a lie. Why didn't you tell me? She finally asked, voice small now. Why hide this? I didn't hide anything, I said. You never asked what I do. You assumed. You assumed I was poor, unworthy, beneath your son, that I married into your family with nothing to offer. That's not, it is. I cut in, firm, but quiet. Every comment about my quaint home, every suggestion that Christopher deserves better, every time you dismissed me or implied I wasn't good enough for your family, you judged me without knowing a thing about me. I didn't know you were wealthy, I finished for her. Successful, educated, strategic, it doesn't matter. You judged me based on my accent, my house, my background. You saw a Latina woman in a modest home and decided I was less than you. I never. You did, I said, not unkindly, but with absolute clarity. And you were wrong. She didn't argue. Because for the first time in 4 years, she had no defense. The rent increase stands, I said. It's fair, it's legal, it's business. If you want to discuss the lease, contact Jennifer. If you want to discuss our relationship, that's a separate conversation. I paused. Then, but right now, I'm your landlord, and you're my tenant. That's all. I hung up. Not dramatically, not angrily, just done. My hands shook as I set the phone down. Not from fear, from release. Like a muscle that had been clenched for years, had finally unclenched. Chris came home early. He'd felt something in the air. He found me at the kitchen table, staring out the window. What happened? He asked. I told him. He didn't cheer, didn't smirk. He just pulled me into his arms and whispered, "You told her." I had to, I said. She demanded to know, so I told her the truth. How do you feel? I thought about it. Terrified, I admitted. Relieved. Powerful, all at once. He kissed my hair. She had it coming. No, I said. She had it needed. Not for punishment. For perspective. 6:38 p.m. My phone rang again. Natalie Hartley, I answered. Gabby, she said, voice low with awe. Is it true? What, that you own 27 properties? I smiled faintly. Yeah, it's true. Holy shit. She laughed, half in shock, half in admiration. Mom called me sobbing. She said you're her landlord. That you've been her landlord for 3 years. That you own half the subdivision. Not half, I corrected gently. Just 27 out of 212 homes. But yeah. Natalie was quiet for a moment. Then, do you have any idea how poetic that is? She spent 4 years making you feel small in your own home, while she paid rent to you, every month, without even knowing. I didn't plan it that way, I said. No, she said softly. But it's perfect. Natalie called that night 10:47 p.m., just as I was folding laundry. Gabby, she said, voice breathless with disbelief. Is it true? You own 27 properties. I didn't answer right away. I just stared out the kitchen window at the string of fairy lights I'd hung over the backyard. The same backyard Constance had dismissed as too small for entertaining. Yes, I finally said. It's true. There was a long pause. Then Natalie let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. Oh my God, 27 Mom just hung up from sobbing on the phone with me. She said you're her landlord, that you've owned her house since 2022, and that you own half the subdivision. I don't own half, I corrected gently. But yeah, I own hers. Natalie went quiet for a second. Then, softly, that's, honestly Gabby, that's poetic justice with a capital J. I smiled faintly. I didn't plan it. No, she said. But you lived it. For 3 years renting her a house while she called yours a cottage. While she told everyone you were sweet but simple. While she told me she wished Chris had married someone more polished. I closed my eyes. I know. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for her? Natalie asked, not unkindly, but with the raw honesty only a sister-in-law who's always liked you can offer. She spent 4 years acting like you were the charity case in the family, and the whole time, you were quietly bankrolling half her neighborhood. I wasn't bankrolling her, I said. She paid market rent, fair, legal, on time. I never gave her a discount. I never treated her like family in business. But she didn't know that, Natalie pressed. And now she's realizing she's been judging the woman who holds her lease, who decides if she stays or goes, who literally owns the roof over her head. Exactly, I said, and that's on her, not me. Natalie sighed. I'm telling Chris. He needs to hear this. He already knows, I said. I told him right after I hung up with Constance. Good, she said, because honestly, I'm proud of you, and I'm furious at her. She had no right. None, I agreed, but pride and fury weren't what I felt most. What I felt was relief, like a weight I hadn't fully acknowledged had finally been lifted. If you've ever been forced to reveal your truth not to brag, but because someone's cruelty left you no choice, you know this feeling. It's not sweet revenge, it's quiet liberation. I'm Gabby and this is what happened after the world found out who I really am. If this story resonates, if you've ever stayed silent while someone assumed the worst hit, subscribe. Your support helps amplify voices that choose dignity over drama. Now, let's talk about what happens when the mask slips off the person who judged you. Constance didn't handle the truth well. Within 24 hours, she called everyone. Aunt Susan got the call first. She sounded shattered. Susan told me later, over coffee at Joe's in South Congress. Like she'd just realized she'd been walking around naked in public. Constance had sobbed into the phone. Susan, I didn't know. I've been horrible to her. And all this time, she's been my landlord. She owns that house, and 26 others. Susan, ever diplomatic but no pushover, didn't coddle her. Constance, she said, I've been meaning to tell you your comments about Gabby at Thanksgiving made me very uncomfortable. We all saw it. She sat there quietly while you called her home embarrassing. Now imagine finding out that same woman owns your home. How do you think she felt? Constance was silent. Exactly, Susan continued. You judged her for her house, her background, her accent. You never asked what she did. You just assumed she wasn't good enough for Chris, and you were wrong, deeply wrong. She never forgive me, Constance whispered. That's not for you to decide, Susan said. But if you want a chance, you'll need more than tears. You'll need a real apology. Bradley, ever the quiet observer, simply said, Constance, humility looks better on you than pride ever did. By February 7th, the news had spread through Cedar Creek like gossip in a small town. Jennifer Wu called me, amused. Gabby, 3 different neighbors have asked if you're really the owner of multiple homes here. One asked if her rental is yours. I don't lie, I said tell them yes. Will do, she said. Also Constance called again. Wants to discuss financial hardship. Asked if she could keep paying the old rent. No, I said immediately. She's not broke, Jennifer reminded me. She's got $190,000 a year from pension and life insurance. I know, I said. But if I make an exception for her, it sets a precedent, and it sends a message. Cruelty gets forgiven with perks. So, standard policy. Standard policy, I confirmed. She's a tenant, not family in business. February 8th, Chris called his mother. I didn't hear the whole conversation, but I heard enough. Mom, he said, voice low and firm, you judged Gabby because you thought she was poor. What if she had been poor? What if she had been exactly who you assumed, a working-class Latina who loves me and works hard? Would you still have treated her like she wasn't worthy of me? Silence. Of course I would have, Constance said weakly. No, Chris said. You wouldn't have. Because your judgment wasn't about her. It was about your own insecurities. You needed her to be less than you so you could feel superior, and now you can't. Another silence. Chris, I made a terrible mistake. Yes, he said, you did. And the only person who can fix it is you. Gabby doesn't need your apology. But you owe it to her anyway. February 10th. Constance showed up at my door. 3:15 p.m. She wore a navy coat, pearls, and a look of pure dread. Can we talk? She asked. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to close the door, but I stepped aside. We sat in my living room, the same room she'd called quaint, in front of 8 people. She looked around differently now. Noticed the solid oak table Chris built for me. The handmade ceramics from Guanajuato on the shelves. The photos of my parents on their wedding day. I owe you an apology, she began. I waited. I've been cruel, she said, voice unsteady. For 4 years, I dismissed you. I minimized your home, your life, your worth. I assumed because you're quiet, because you don't wear designer clothes, because your English has an accent, that you weren't successful, that you weren't enough for Christopher. She looked at me, eyes wet. I was wrong. About everything. I didn't speak, let her sit in it. Finding out you own my house, my rent check has been going to you for 3 years. It's humbling, but more than that, it's shaming. Because I realize now, I didn't just insult your house. I insulted your character, your dignity, your work. She took a shaky breath. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I'm asking for a chance to see you clearly, to treat you with the respect you've always earned, even when I couldn't see it. I studied her. Was this real? Or was this just shame talking? I believe you mean it now, I said finally. But Constance, will you still feel this way in 6 months? When the embarrassment fades? When no one's talking about it anymore? She nodded slowly. I hope so. I'm trying to be better. For Chris? For Natalie? For myself? But mostly, for you. Then prove it, I said. Not with words, with actions. Don't compliment my house now that you know it's valuable. Love it because it's mine. Don't ask about my portfolio, ask about my day. Don't treat me like I've changed. Treat me like you finally see me. She wiped her eyes. I will. I'll hold you to that. I said. That Sunday my parents came over. Rosa made pos. Manuel brought pan dulce from his favorite bakery. Over dinner, Mom asked, "How's your heart, Mia?" Heavy, I admitted. Relieved, but sad. Why sad? Dad asked. Because I wish she'd seen me before. She knew I was rich. I wish she'd valued me for my kindness, my loyalty, my love for Chris, not because I own houses. Manuel reached across the table, squeezed my hand. That's the tragedy of small minds, he said. They can only measure worth in dollars. But you, Rosa added fiercely, you built an empire in silence. She just needed the mirror to see her own reflection. February 25th. Constance gave formal notice, through Jennifer Wu. Ms. Hartley intends to vacate 2468 Oak Street effective April 30th. I didn't call her, I didn't ask why, I just approved the move-out inspection. She couldn't stay, not because I asked her to leave, but because she couldn't face renting from the woman she'd spent years belittling. Her pride wouldn't allow it. That same week, Natalie came to visit. We sat on my back porch, drinking iced tea. She's moving to Dallas, she said. Found a 2-bedroom condo near me. Rent's $1,950, smaller than Cedar Creek. Why Dallas? I asked. She couldn't stay in Austin, Natalie said. Too many people know now. Her book club, her tennis friends, even the barista at her coffee shop. Everyone thinks it's ironic, and honestly, a little satisfying. I sighed. I didn't want to run her out of town. I know, Natalie said. But you didn't have to. Her own judgment did that. She paused. She asked about you, though for the first time ever really asked. How is Gabby? Is she mad at me? Does she hate me? What did you say? I told her you're not petty, that you're disappointed, but you're not cruel, and that if she wants a real relationship with you, she'll have to earn it. Slowly, I nodded. That's fair. Natalie smiled. You know what's funny? She used to say you were too modest. Now she says you're remarkable. Funny how truth changes people's vocabulary. Sunlight spills through the kitchen window of my little house, the same house Constance Hartley once called a quaint cottage in front of 8 people. I'm sitting at the oak table Chris built for me, barefoot in worn cotton pajamas, scrolling through my portfolio dashboard on my laptop. Total properties, 29 portfolio value, $14.2 million equity, $9. 1 meter average monthly passive income, $18,400 6 months since she found out. 6 months since the world shifted not with a bang, but with a phone call, a rent notice, and one stunned silence. And yet, nothing about my life has changed. I still live here. I still drive my 2019 Honda CR-V. I still buy jeans at Target. I still make tamales the way my abuela taught me. The only difference? I don't have to hide anymore. If you've ever built something meaningful in silence while the people around you assumed you were small, you know this piece. It's not loud. It doesn't need applause, but it's unshakable. I'm Gabby and this is what victory really looks like. Not revenge, not humiliation, just truth, finally seen. If this journey has spoken to you, if you've ever been judged for your home, your accent, your modesty while quietly thriving, hit subscribe. Your support helps amplify stories where humility wins and assumptions lose. Now, let's talk about what happens after the storm. Constance moved out on April 30th. She didn't fight the rent increase, didn't beg for an exception, just packed her pearls, her vintage china, and her pride and left. By May, she was in Dallas. Natalie told me over coffee in July. She's renting a 2-bedroom condo near me. $1,950 a month. Smaller than Cedar Creek. No granite countertops. No vaulted ceilings. Why Dallas? I asked. Natalie sighed. She couldn't stay in Austin. Too many people knew. Her book club, her tennis friends, even the woman at the dry cleaner. Everyone heard. Constance Hartley spent 3 years renting from the daughter-in-law she called embarrassing. She's humiliated, I said quietly. She's humbled, Natalie corrected. There's a difference. Humiliation is what happens to your ego. Humility is what grows after. I hoped she was right. Because I didn't want her destroyed. I just wanted her to see me. August 10th. A letter arrived in the mail, handwritten, no return address, but the looping cursive was unmistakable. Constance. I opened it alone, sitting on my back porch, the same porch where I'd cried after Thanksgiving. Dear Gabriella, I'm writing because I don't trust myself to say this correctly in person. For 6 months, I've replayed every word I said to you. Every glance, every sigh. Every time I made you feel small in your own home. I told myself I wanted the best for Christopher. But the truth is uglier. I wanted him to marry someone who made me look good. Someone whose success I could brag about. Someone who fit my narrow, shallow definition of appropriate. You didn't fit. And instead of being curious, instead of asking who you were, what you built, what you valued, decided you weren't enough, I was wrong. Completely. Devastatingly wrong. You built an empire in silence. You achieved more in 10 years than I have in 60. And you did it with grace, humility, and zero need for validation. I judged your house, your background, your worth based on nothing but my own insecurity. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I am asking for a chance to know you. Not as my son's wife. Not as my landlord. Not as a millionaire. Just as Gabriella, the woman my son loves. The woman I should have valued from the start. I moved to Dallas because I couldn't face the consequences of my actions. That was cowardly. But maybe distance will help me become someone better. If you're ever willing to talk, I would be grateful. With sincere regret, Constance. The first read it 3 times, cried once, not from sadness, from hope. August 20th, my 35th birthday. We kept it small, 15 people max. Backyard BBQ, string lights, cold beer and homemade salsa. My parents were first to arrive. Rosa brought flan. Manuel brought his guitar. Chris grilled burgers, wearing an apron that said official taste tester. Natalie flew in from Dallas. Jennifer Wu came with her wife and a bottle of champagne. No Constance. But that was okay. During dinner, Dad stood up. To me, Hija, he said, voice thick, who built a kingdom in silence? Who proved that wealth whispers? Who shows us every day that success isn't measured by square footage but by character? Everyone raised their glasses. I cried happy tears into my napkin. Later, Chris handed me a small box. From her, he said quietly. Inside, a framed photograph. My house. Not just any photo professional. Golden hour light. Jasmine vines framing the front door. The little cottage glowing with warmth. At the bottom, an engraved plate, where it all began. With admiration, Constance, I traced the words with my finger. She's trying, Chris said. I know, I whispered. Maybe I'll call her. October 3rd, 2025. I dialed her number. She answered on the second ring. Gabriella. Her voice was soft, afraid. It's me. I said. I got your letter, and your gift. A pause. Then, did you? I wasn't sure you'd keep it. I did both. Thank you. The photo is beautiful. Another pause. Longer. I should have seen it 4 years ago. She said. Your house. You're worth you. Yes, I said. You should have. She didn't argue, didn't make excuses. I can't undo the past, she said. But I'd like to try for a better future. If you'll let me. I looked out my window at the house I'd renovated with my own hands. The backyard where Chris proposed. The porch where I'd just read her letter. I'm willing to try, I said. Slowly. With boundaries, but I'm willing. She cried then. Not performative, real. Thank you, she whispered. That's more than I deserve. Maybe, I said. We'll say an epilogo in August 2026, 1 year later. Family BBQ. Chris just got promoted to engineering manager at Tesla. And this time, Constance is here. She flew in from Dallas. Helped Rosa in the kitchen without commenting on the modest kitchenware. Laughed with Natalie over margaritas. Even helped Manuel string up the fairy lights. No judgment. No sighs. Just presence. Later, she found me by the lemon tree. Gabriella, she said, can I say something? Of course. I was wrong about everything. Your house, your background, your worth. But mostly, I was wrong about what success looks like. She looked at my home not with pity, not with envy, but with respect. Success isn't the size of your house, she said. It's the life you build inside it. The people you love. The dignity you keep. I nodded. My father taught me that. He raised an extraordinary woman, she said. And I'm sorry it took me so long to see her. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't. Not fully. But I said, thank you. That means a lot. And for the first time in 4 years, it did. That night, after everyone left, I stood in my kitchen, same kitchen, where Constance once mocked my quaint cottage. Chris wrapped his arms around me from behind. You okay? He asked. I smiled. I'm perfect. Actually, I'm more than perfect. I'm exactly who I was always meant to be. In your little house, he said. I turned to him, eyes shining. In my empire,